Have you ever remembered something so clearly that you would bet your life it happened exactly that way? You remember where you were, what someone said, what you felt, maybe even the expression on their face. And because the memory feels so vivid, you assume it must be accurate. But what if those two things aren't the same? What if a memory can feel incredibly real, while slowly becoming different from what actually happened? This isn't just a philosophical question. It's one of the strangest problems in psychology. Because your brain doesn't store your life like a video recording. Memory is something much more complicated. When you remember an event, your brain has to reconstruct it. And that reconstruction can be influenced by information you encountered later. This is one reason psychologists study false memories and misinformation effects. But there's an even stranger discovery. Recent research suggests that when a memory is strongly connected to you, it may become particularly vulnerable to misleading information. In a 2026 study, researchers had participants encode events either as people directly involved in them or as observers. Later, they were exposed to misleading information. The participants who had encoded the events as personally relevant were more likely to accept that misinformation. Think about what that means. You might assume that because something happened to you, your memory of it must be stronger and more trustworthy. But personal relevance may make the memory more deeply connected to your sense of self. And that creates a strange vulnerability. Because when you retrieve a memory, you're not simply opening a file. The act of remembering can temporarily make that memory more changeable before it is stabilized again, a phenomenon researchers call reconsolidation. And during that process, new information can sometimes become connected with the old memory. Imagine remembering an argument from 10 years ago. You remember your friend saying something cruel. Years later, another person tells you, "I remember that day. They were angry because you had already betrayed them." Maybe you never remembered that part. But now you start thinking about it. You imagine what it looked like. You connect it to other memories. Eventually, the detail feels familiar. And familiarity can feel like evidence. But familiarity isn't proof. Your brain is trying to construct the most coherent version of the event it can. And sometimes, coherence wins over accuracy. This becomes even more dangerous when the memory is connected to your identity. Because now you're not just remembering an event. You're remembering yourself. The person who was rejected. The person who was betrayed. The person who failed. The person who was humiliated. The person who was loved. And when a memory becomes part of your identity, changing the memory can feel like changing your own history. Which raises a disturbing question. If your memories can change without you noticing, how much of the person you believe yourself to be is built on events exactly as they happened? And how much is built on the version your brain reconstructed? Because the strangest part of memory isn't that we forget. It's that sometimes we remember something that never happened exactly the way we remember it. And this is where the story becomes even stranger. A false memory doesn't necessarily feel false. That is what makes it so powerful. You don't usually experience a false memory as, "I think I'm inventing this." You experience it as, "I remember." And that feeling can be incredibly convincing. Research on false memory has repeatedly demonstrated that people can sometimes incorporate misleading information into their recollections, although the exact mechanisms and conditions vary considerably between experiments. But why would the brain work this way? Because perfect historical accuracy may not actually be the primary purpose of memory. Memory helps you navigate the present. It helps you predict what might happen next. It tells you who is safe, who isn't, what worked, what failed, what you should avoid. In that sense, memory is less like an archive, and more like a constantly updated model of the world. Some researchers have proposed that prediction error and new information can play an important role in memory updating and reconsolidation. And that explains something fascinating. Your brain doesn't necessarily need every detail of the past. It needs a useful version of the past. A version that helps you make sense of what happens next. But there is a problem. A useful story isn't always an accurate story. Imagine that years ago someone rejected you. You remember the moment. Then you experience another rejection. Your brain connects the two. Then another. Eventually, your mind may begin constructing a larger narrative. People always leave me. Now you're no longer remembering one event. You're remembering a pattern. And that pattern can influence how you interpret future experiences. A neutral message can feel like rejection. A delayed reply can feel like abandonment. A disagreement can feel like proof. The original memory may have been real, but the meaning surrounding it has evolved. And that distinction matters. Because memory isn't the same thing as history. Your memory is your brain's current reconstruction of history. That's why you should be careful with the certainty of statements like, "I know exactly what happened." You may know that something happened. You may remember the emotional truth of it. But the exact details? Those can be much less certain than they feel. And here's the paradox. The memories that feel most personal may sometimes be the ones you defend most strongly. Because challenging the memory can feel like challenging your identity. If your entire understanding of yourself is built around, "I was always the rejected one," then discovering that one important memory was incomplete doesn't just change the past. It changes the story you built from it. And maybe that's why some memories are so difficult to let go of. We aren't protecting the memory. We're protecting the person we became because of it. But this doesn't mean you should distrust everything you remember. That would be another mistake. Memory is extraordinarily useful. Most of the time, it allows us to navigate the world remarkably well. The point is simply this: confidence is not the same thing as accuracy. You can be completely certain and still be wrong about a detail. So the next time you remember something from years ago, especially something emotionally important, ask yourself, am I remembering what happened? Or am I remembering the version of what happened that my brain has built over time? Because your past may feel permanent, but the memory of your past is still being carried by a living brain. And perhaps the most unsettling thing about that is this: you don't need to change the past to change your memory of it. Sometimes, all it takes is remembering it again.